It was a day that began like any other, a crisp Tuesday morning in the heart of our nation's capital, at the venerable Washington National Zoo. The gentle hum of early autumn, the rustle of fallen leaves, and the excited chatter of families filled the air. Then, without warning, the tranquility shattered. A piercing cry, sharp and urgent, tore through the pavilions. "Code Red! Code Red! Big cat on the loose!" The voice of Chief Eleanor Vance, our vigilant security supervisor, cut through the sudden silence like a siren, sending ripples of pure, unadulterated panic through the throngs of visitors. In an instant, the meticulously planned pathways became a chaotic labyrinth. Families scattered, their laughter replaced by gasps of fear. Children, their faces streaked with tears, clung desperately to their parents' hands, while guards, their faces grim, armed with tranquilizer rifles, moved with the grim determination of soldiers entering a battlefield. At the epicenter of this swirling maelstrom stood a magnificent creature, a 400-pound male lion, his golden mane, a fiery halo, flowing majestically in the cool October breeze of Washington, D.C. He moved with the innate regality of one born to wear a crown. This was Leo, though only one soul on earth still dared to call him by that tender name. He had achieved what the most seasoned security experts had sworn was an impossibility. He had breached the defenses of a maximum security enclosure within what was considered the most advanced zoo in the United States. The acrid tang of human fear, sharp and metallic, now mingled with the earthy scent of dry leaves, carried on the American autumn wind. Visitors fled along the paved paths, abandoning strollers, scattering popcorn, and leaving behind the shattered dreams of a peaceful family outing. Emergency sirens began their mournful wail, a rising crescendo that mingled with the distant, frantic blare of the 1st D.C. Metropolitan Police units. The sounds of terror echoed through the century-old trees of the National Zoo, a chilling symphony of chaos. Yet Leo, seemingly oblivious to the pandemonium he had unleashed, walked with an unwavering sense of purpose. His golden eyes did not scan the environment for prey or threats, nor did they betray any sign of aggression. There was something far deeper guiding his powerful steps, a pull so primitive and potent that it transcended mere survival instincts. It was as if an unseen, magnetic force was drawing him inexorably towards a specific, predetermined destination. Standing near the main entrance, a figure of quiet dignity, was Arthur Sterling. At 73 years young, a proud veteran of the Vietnam War, Arthur had retired 8 years prior from his distinguished position as head zookeeper. He had returned that morning for a nostalgic visit, a pilgrimage of sorts. It was the 20th anniversary of his retirement, and he wished to see how his children were faring, as he affectionately referred to the countless animals he had nurtured and raised over the decades. Dressed in his favorite worn brown wool coat and leaning gently on a sturdy oak cane, Arthur observed the unfolding chaos around him with the profound calm of one who had faced far greater perils on distant, blood-soaked battlefields. Visitors, their faces contorted with terror, rushed past him, shouting frantic warnings about a lion on the loose. "Move, hide, run!" they cried. But something, an instinct far older and deeper than fear, compelled Arthur to remain precisely where he stood. It was not mere courage, though he possessed it in abundance. It was recognition. When he saw that magnificent golden silhouette emerge from among the ancient trees, when he observed the unique, powerful cadence of those colossal paws, when he caught the specific, regal angle of that majestic head, Arthur's heart leaped, not with terror, but with an emotion far more complex, a profound sense of wonder and disbelief. His wise blue eyes, though slightly clouded by cataracts, widened with an unmistakable flash of recognition. "Lio," he whispered, his voice cracking, barely audible above the rising din of sirens and shouts. The last terrified visitor had rushed past him a mere 30 seconds ago. Security guards, their faces etched with desperation, shouted through megaphones for him to move, to hide, to run for his life. But Arthur Sterling remained motionless in the middle of the main path, his hands trembling, not with fear, but with an overwhelming anticipation, a hope he had scarcely dared to entertain. In the distance, Dr. Evelyn Reed, the zoo's esteemed veterinary director, watched through her binoculars, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Someone get that old man out of there," she screamed into her radio, her voice raw with alarm. "She's going to be killed?" But Arthur knew something no one else present could possibly comprehend, something that 2 decades of time, layers of bureaucracy, countless new hires, and modern protocols had buried deep within the zoo's history. Something that only 2 creatures in that entire sprawling zoo still remembered. Leo continued his deliberate, unhurried journey towards the main gate, completely ignoring the tranquilizer darts that whizzed dangerously close to his magnificent head, each a whisper of potential oblivion. His golden eyes, unwavering and focused, were fixed solely on the white-haired man who stood motionless, like a statue carved from granite, amidst the swirling chaos. And with each powerful step, something primitive within Leo's own memory became clearer, sharper, undeniable. It was the scent that guided him. Even after 20 long years, even through decades of other smells, other humans, other routines, there was an unmistakable essence about the aroma of that particular man that ignited long, dormant neural circuits deep within the lion's ancient brain. It was the scent of home, the scent of absolute safety, the scent of father. Chief Eleanor Vance, the security supervisor, stood 50 yards away, her tranquilizer dart gun shaking visibly in her hands. "Mr. Sterling," she bellowed through her megaphone, her voice cracking with urgency. "Move away immediately! The animal is approaching!" But Arthur did not move. His eyes remained locked on the approaching lion, and tears, not of fear but of pure, uncontrollable emotion, began to stream freely down his wrinkled cheeks. "My boy," he whispered slowly, extending one hand, a gesture of profound trust and love. "My sweet boy, you remember, don't you?" When Leo was merely 10 meters away, an extraordinary event unfolded. A moment that would forever redefine the boundaries of interspecies connection. The lion stopped completely. His powerful breathing quickened, and he tilted his massive head slightly to the side, precisely as he had done as a curious cub, trying to understand a new command or an intriguing sound. The armed guards, their faces tense, fingers hovering over their triggers, waited for any sign of aggressive movement, their bodies rigid with anticipation. Security cameras, strategically placed throughout the zoo, captured every breathtaking second. Reporters, who had arrived on the scene with an almost supernatural intuition, pointed their phones and professional cameras, instinctively knowing that they were witnessing something truly unprecedented, a miracle unfolding before their very eyes. Leo took 3 more cautious, deliberate steps. He stopped again. His piercing golden eyes studied Arthur's face intently, as if processing information at levels that defied all current scientific understanding of animal memory and cognition. And then, in a display that would compel biologists to question decades of entrenched research, the magnificent predator slowly lowered his head in a gesture of profound, respectful submission. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum of sound that seemed to swallow even the distant wail of sirens. It was as if the entire city of Washington, D.C. was holding its breath, collectively witnessing this impossible tableau. Dr. Evelyn Reed watched through the lens of her binoculars, her jaw slack with disbelief. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself, her voice barely a whisper. "Lions don't hold specific emotional memories for 2 decades. It's simply not in their neurological makeup." But Chief Eleanor Vance, who had worked at the zoo for 15 years, was beginning to recall old stories, whispers among the older employees about Arthur Sterling, the legendary keeper who had raised an entire generation of big cats as if they were his own beloved children. "Good heavens," Chief Vance murmured, slowly lowering her gun, her face etched with a dawning realization. "It's Arthur. It really is old Arthur." 20 years ago, Arthur Sterling wasn't just a keeper, he was a living legend in the world of American zoos, renowned across the country for his almost mystical ability to connect with big cats. When Leo arrived at the National Zoo as a 6-week-old orphan, tragically rejected by his mother at a Detroit zoo, it was Arthur who, without hesitation, volunteered to care for him around the clock. For 8 painstaking months, Arthur Bottle fed Leo every 3 hours, day and night. He slept on a makeshift cot next to the cub's enclosure, his presence a constant source of comfort and security. He played with him tirelessly during the day, comforted him during terrifying nighttime storms, and patiently taught the young lion the intricate social skills necessary for eventual integration with other cats. "That's my boy," Arthur would tell visitors who stopped to watch the elderly zookeeper playing with the energetic cub. "He may not know it, but he's my son, and I'm his dad." Arthur's colleagues often thought he was overreacting to the emotional connection, dismissing it as an old man's sentimentality. Supervisors frequently warned him about excessive involvement with the animals, citing professional detachment. But Arthur knew something that science was still in the nascent stages of learning. Some bonds transcend species, defy the limitations of time, and even reach beyond the veil of what we perceive as death. Leo approached Arthur with deliberate, yet cautious steps, his massive form moving with an almost ethereal grace. When he was just 2 meters away, he stopped again and emitted a sound that none of those present had ever heard before. It was not a roar, nor was it a typical grunt. It was something lower, more intimate, a resonant vibration deep within his chest. It was almost like a giant, rumbling purr. Arthur slowly extended his right hand, the same hand that had fed Leo thousands of times 2 decades ago, the hand that had offered comfort and security. "It's okay, boy," he whispered, his voice breaking with profound emotion. "It's Daddy. Daddy's here." Leo sniffed Arthur's hand for several long, poignant seconds. His nostrils flared, capturing every nuanced molecule of a scent that had been etched into his memory during the most formative, vulnerable months of his life. And then, in a scene that would send videos viral across the globe in a matter of hours, the magnificent lion began to gently, tenderly lick Arthur's hand. "Oh my God," whispered a CNN reporter who had just arrived on the scene, her voice barely audible. He's petting him." Tears streamed freely down Arthur's face as he carefully, lovingly stroked Leo's thick mane, his fingers tangling in the golden strands. "I knew you'd remember," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "I always knew. My sweet boy." Leo responded by resting his massive head on Arthur's chest, just as he had done when he was a tiny cub seeking attention and comfort. The 400-pound lion, capable of breaking bones with a single bite, behaved with the docility of a giant house cat seeking affection from its beloved owner. The guards watched in absolute, stunned silence. Some cried openly, their stoicism dissolving in the face of such raw emotion. Others could hardly believe what their eyes were witnessing. Cameras captured every precious second of a reunion that defied everything they thought they knew about animal behavior, about memory, about love. Dr. Evelyn Reed approached cautiously, still maintaining a respectful distance, her scientific skepticism battling with the undeniable reality before her. As a veterinarian with a doctorate in animal behavior, she knew she was witnessing something that fundamentally contradicted decades of established scientific research. "Arthur," she called softly, her voice filled with wonder, "how is this possible?" Scientific literature states, unequivocally, that lions do not maintain specific emotional bonds for more than a few years. Their neurological pathways simply aren't designed for such long-term, species-spanning attachments. Arthur smiled through his tears, continuing to stroke Leo's powerful flank. "Doctor," he replied, without taking his eyes off the magnificent lion, his voice imbued with a quiet wisdom. "There are things in this world that science cannot yet explain. Love is one of them." Leo then laid down at Arthur's feet, assuming a position that allowed the elderly man to lean comfortably against his massive side. It was the exact same position they had assumed 20 years ago, when Arthur would read the newspaper while the cub slept peacefully beside him. "He used to do that when he was little," Arthur explained to the fascinated observers, his voice filled with nostalgia. "Every afternoon after lunch, he would lie like this, and I would read to him. Sometimes about sports, sometimes about politics. He just liked the sound of my voice." As if responding to the comment, Leo emitted that low, resonant purr again, a sound that vibrated through his massive chest and warmed the hearts of all who heard it, a living testament to an unbreakable bond. Chief Eleanor Vance approached slowly, still holding the tranquilizer gun, but with her finger now safely away from the trigger. "Arthur," she said, her voice filled with reverence, "you saved lives today. If that lion had found anyone else—" Arthur nodded, understanding the unspoken implication. "Leo would never intentionally hurt anyone," he said, his voice firm. "But a confused animal in unfamiliar territory, accidents can happen." Convincing Leo to return to his enclosure proved surprisingly easy, a testament to the profound trust he placed in Arthur. When Arthur stood up and began walking slowly towards the lion's habitat, Leo followed obediently like a giant, loyal dog following its beloved owner. "Let's go home, boy," Arthur said softly, his voice filled with gentle persuasion, and Leo responded with that comforting, rumbling purr. The procession, Arthur walking slowly with his cane, Leo at his side, armed guards forming a respectful perimeter, moved through the zoo in almost reverential silence. Visitors who had returned after the all-clear signal watched in stunned amazement, taking photos and recording videos of a scene that looked like something out of a fantasy movie, a living legend unfolding before their eyes. When they reached the enclosure, Leo hesitated at the entrance. He looked at Arthur with an expression that could only be described as profound melancholy. As if he understood that this miraculous meeting was temporary, a brief reprieve from the realities of their separate worlds. "I know, boy," Arthur whispered, stroking the lion's magnificent mane one last time, his hand lingering. "I don't want it to end either, but you have your family here now." "Your home is here?" Leo licked Arthur's hand one more time, a final tender gesture, then slowly, reluctantly, walked into the enclosure. He lay down near the fence, where he could still see Arthur, and remained there while the guards meticulously checked and reinforced the security systems. Arthur stood outside for several minutes, watching Leo watch him, a silent communion passing between them. "You were a good boy today," he said finally, his voice filled with pride. "Daddy is proud of you." Within 6 hours, the video of Arthur and Leo's reunion had gone explosively viral across all social media platforms. The hashtags became trending topics globally, dominating news feeds and conversations. Animal behavior experts from universities around the world watched the videos repeatedly, their minds reeling, trying desperately to understand how a lion had retained specific emotional memories for 2 decades, defying all known scientific principles. Dr. Alastair Finch, the world-famous primatologist, posted on his social media, "This video reminds us that there is still so much we don't understand about the emotional depth of animals. True love transcends all barriers." Major news outlets called, offering Arthur lucrative appearances and exclusive interviews. National Geographic asked for permission to make a documentary, but Arthur, with his characteristic humility, declined all offers. "This isn't about fame," he explained to reporters, his voice firm but gentle. "It's about love, and love shouldn't be commercialized." The incident forced the Washington National Zoo to undertake a complete overhaul of its security protocols, a rigorous investigation into how Leo had managed to escape from a high-security enclosure. The investigation revealed a minute flaw in the electronic locking system, a 1 in a million chance according to the engineers. But more important than the security protocols was the profound change in policy regarding former employees. The zoo, humbled by the extraordinary event, created a special program allowing retired keepers like Arthur to make regular, scheduled visits to the animals they had raised. This officially recognized that some bonds are simply too important, too powerful, to ignore. We need to accept that we don't know everything about animal emotional intelligence. Dr. Evelyn Reed said at a press conference, her voice filled with newfound humility. "This incident has taught us humility, and it has taught us to listen to the whispers of the heart." Arthur agreed to make monthly visits to Leo, always accompanied by security guards and under special protocols, a compromise he willingly accepted. But everyone at the zoo knew that if another incident occurred, Arthur Sterling would be the first person they would call. The University of Maryland launched a long-term study on interspecies bonds, using Arthur and Leo as their primary case study. Researchers sought to understand how specific emotional memories could persist for decades in big cats, challenging long-held assumptions. "We are discovering that we have seriously underestimated the ability of animals to form and maintain complex emotional bonds," explained Dr. Lena Harrison, a behavioral neuroscientist who led the groundbreaking research. "The case of Leo and Arthur is rewriting some of our basic assumptions about animal cognition and emotion." MRI scans of Leo's brain, taken during routine veterinary exams, showed undeniable activation in regions associated with emotional memory and social recognition when he was exposed to recordings of Arthur's voice. It was tangible, scientific evidence that the bond was real, measurable, and profoundly deep. 2 years after the Leo incident, as it became known in zoo circles, Arthur continued his monthly visits. Leo always recognized him immediately, always responded with that low, comforting purr, always lay down in the same familiar position that allowed Arthur to lean comfortably against his massive side. The zoo, in a gesture of profound respect and recognition, installed a special plaque near the lion's habitat in memory of bonds that transcend species, time, and understanding. The inscription read, "Hair, love proved stronger than instinct." Children from local schools visited regularly to hear the incredible story of Arthur and Leo. Educational programs were developed around the narrative, teaching about empathy, connection, and the paramount importance of treating all living things with dignity and respect. Arthur, now 75, knew he didn't have many years left with Leo, but he found a profound peace in knowing that he had proven something immensely important to the world, that true love knows no species barriers, does not diminish with time, and sometimes manifests itself in ways that defy all scientific logic. During one of his visits, as he watched Leo sleep peacefully in the afternoon sun, Arthur reflected on the day that changed not only his life, but the global understanding of the bonds between humans and animals. "You know," he said to Dr. Evelyn Reed, who was with him that afternoon, her own perspective forever altered. "People always ask how it was possible, how a lion remembered me after 20 years. And what's your answer?" she asked, her gaze fixed on the magnificent lion. Arthur smiled, watching Leo stretch lazily, a picture of contented grace. "I tell them they're asking the wrong question. The question isn't how he remembered. The question is, how could we forget?" The sun set over Washington, D.C. that afternoon, painting the sky in shades of gold that perfectly matched Leo's magnificent mane. And somewhere, between the fading light of the day and the low, resonant purr of a lion who never forgot his first father, it became clear that some stories are simply too grand to be contained by scientific explanations. Sometimes, the only explanation needed is love. And sometimes, when we least expect it, that love manifests itself in ways that stop time, challenge our assumptions, and change the world forever. On that day at the National Zoo in Washington, it wasn't strength that saved lives. It was memory. It was love. It was an unbroken oath, a bond that not even 2 decades could sever. And it was proof that in the end, we are all part of the same family, a family that extends far beyond the boundaries of species, far beyond the limitations of science, and far beyond anything we ever thought possible.